Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are tuning in from. Welcome to the Embodied Self podcast, formerly known as From a Place of Self, a podcast that I ran for a period of time about what it means to live from a place of self. That throughout my years of spiritual practice and my years of coaching and trying to serve others, and observation of what's going on in the world today and throughout history and life, this need to connect back to our core authentic sense of self. And when we do that, answers flow, clarity flows. And when we don't, we find conflict, disharmony, all of the problems that we see in the world today. And so much of the work that I do is trying to continuously bring myself and invite others to come back to a core place of self. But we took a pause and now we're making some shifts. We're rebranding and we're bringing more into this podcast. And there's a special person here that's decided to do this with me that I've been trying to for a long time and thought maybe it would just be an interview or one conversation. We just decided, you know what, let's just go all in because that's how we do things. And so we're doing this together. And my beautiful, wonderful wife and partner, my life partner, as well as my business partner and my partner in our teaching partner, Rasika is here with us, and she's going to be doing this podcast with us, and we're going to be sharing what the embodied self means, why we're here, and just want to introduce you and say hi and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've been watching you on the sidelines offer all your teachings and wisdom, and just been hearing from you again and again, wanting me to come on and be in dialogue. Since we have these conversations all the time, it feels like this is just everyday conversation for us that organically flows. And so, yeah, I appreciate you drawing me out of my hermitage from the forest, from solitude, from my place of contemplation, and yeah, bringing me into a place where, yeah, finally feel like there's so much to share. There's so much more to share than can be captured in a reel or an Instagram post, and to have this longer form space to just have these organic conversations. I'm really excited for all that's going to unfold and be discussed and churned, and the realizations and inspirations that will come from it. And so, thank you for not giving up on me and pulling me out of my shell.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to sharing these conversations and bringing you, like those listening, along with us in the journey. You know, we teach and we practice internal family systems and somatic internal family systems, and we do one-on-one work and we do trainings, but it's that all of that work fits under the umbrella of our broader mission of the Conscious Earth Institute of creating a more conscious society. And all of these things are means towards raising the level of consciousness in our own lives and in the lives of the people around us, and just doing our little bit. And what we find is that it's right there waiting for us, right? It's not
Mm.
on some distant mountaintop. You don't have to go to some ashram, although I lived in an ashram for 10 years. You don't have to go to India, although I go to India regularly and lead trips there, and all of those things. And you said about being in your forest and your hermitage, and you literally, we've recently moved to New Jersey with a lot more space and nature. You'll just go, I'll just look out the window, and the car will be driving away, and I'm like, she's not going to the store to get almond milk. Yeah. she's she's going, she's retreating into
I'm
the forest.
regularly at the forest,
She's
just a
like,
few minutes away. There's a beautiful nature trail. I go so often at this point, I don't even tell you because
doesn't
I'm
even tell
just
me. I'm like, okay,
coming
like,
there and back. It's just 3 minutes away.
yeah, no one's home. Okay, she that's where she's at, and but we also lived in New York City for 11 years
We did. Woof.
in a Brooklyn apartment on the sixth floor and on Coney Island Avenue in the middle of a, a bunch of stuff, and you can find that conscious seed of awareness is ready and available for us in a moment, whether we have access to nature or the forest, which is beautiful and foundational and critical, or whether we're at work, or whether we're with our families, or whether we're just in a New York City apartment. What a contrast for us to be there and now to be here. But it's just coming back to presence and awareness, and that's what we want this podcast to be. Just a break in your day, even if you're just listening for 30 seconds, what to speak of the whole episode, just to come back, have conscious conversation and reminders. One of my favorite quotes is that
Mm,
we need to be instructed much more than we need to be reminded. We need to be reminded much more than we need to be instructed, right? And there's not like
yes.
this new information that needs to be put out into the world. Sometimes it gets put like that because of the commodification of wellness and
Mm.
social media, of like, I got to give something new that you've never seen before, and you're not going to find it anywhere else, and oh my god, where do I click so I can buy whatever's happening? But
Yeah, here's this one somatic practice to regulate your nervous system and you're healed.
right, yeah, and we're just looking for it, and because we live in an extraordinarily dysregulating society. I mean, it's
Yes.
it's it's a big one. We live in an extraordinarily dysregulating society, from technology, from social media, from the news, from just the disrupt in relationships. I mean, so many of us, it's natural to come from destabilized homes. I come from a destabilized home. We
Me
both have
too.
we both have alcoholic fathers. Mine passed away 20 plus years ago. Yours is still alive and kicking, and we love him. We love Richie.
He's wonderful. I mean, just to say, like, this is the power of this healing work to come from whatever our childhood wounds are, core wounds, and how that is driving and fueling present day dysfunction and dysregulation and limiting and false beliefs and feeling stuck and that unease and anxiety and all of that we find roots back into childhood. But what a beauty and gift this work has been for me to feel like I have, you know, I don't like to say healing, you're fully healed, but those relationships are fully healed. What beautiful relationships I have with my family, with my parents. Um, and to know that that only came through this beautiful fusion, this beautiful integration of not only somatic work, working with the body, not only inner work, working with our psychology, but also infusing that with our conscious awareness and the spiritual dimension of existence, and how that truly, these three dimensions, um, the body, the mind, the body mind system, and our spiritual conscious presence, when you bring all those together, that is what leads to the holistic, full healing that we're all searching for and yearning for and in desperate need of. And so to say that, um, there are no silver bullets to healing. There's no one and done. Healing takes time and comes in layers, but we've found in this work integrating these three dimensions of existence, the body, mind, and spirit, it is the most effective and powerful, yet gentle and respectful and almost effortless. That's what I love about this work. Almost effortless way to bring that healing and transformation. And so that's just my tangent. I wanted to jump in and say, as you invoked the presence of my loving father, who, yeah,
We love you,
we
Rich.
adore. We love you, Rich.
We just stopped by yesterday to pick up a load of firewood.
Oh, and what sweetness, like to that simple life that we're enjoying now in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And getting back to the basics, and that we all want that. We want the simple good life, isn't it? That's actually what we're all wanting. We're wanting peace of mind, we're wanting contentedness, we're wanting to feel gratitude, not to like force ourselves to do gratitude lists and force ourselves to appreciate and yet still be in the thick of dysregulation and fear and anxiety. We actually want to step into the fullness of our being, which is calm, which is grounded, which is centered, which even amidst all the uncertainty and external struggles and challenges of life which will inevitably be there in this material world, this world of duality. We want to navigate that all, and we can. It's our birthright to navigate that all from this place of self. And this new rebrand, relaunch of your podcast, now our podcast, The Embodied Self, just is a more, I guess you could say, precise or true description of what it means to be situated in self, what it means to be coming from a place of self. Our conscious awareness can only be experienced through the body, through being fully embodied. And so we can't just jump or leapfrog over the body. We can't just think our way into healing, analyze, rationalize, understand our way into healing. And we can't just simply like feel it to heal it. You know, that's a common term in that's growing in popularity with nervous system regulation and somatic work. Like it's also not just solely healing is not just simply in the body. Yes, trauma is stored in the body. It lives in our tissues and our fascia. It's encoded in our nervous system. Our nervous system over time can become chronically dysregulated with all this unprocessed, stuck survival energy, unprocessed, unresolved, wounding, emotional distress, limiting and false beliefs. But it can't be one or the other. And somatic IFS, the work that we do, it bridges these two. It marries these two, which have always been one functioning system. The body mind system is one system, but it's helpful to have the nuance of, yes, understanding fully the body system, the nervous system, but also our psychology, the subtler layers of our mind, our subconscious, which is intimately connected with the nervous system. And so all of this is brought together in the umbrella of somatic IFS, somatic parts work, where we engage with the body and we allow the body to be a gateway to the subconscious mind. So it's bridging our physiology with our psychology. And parts language is a beautiful way to meet ourselves in a new way, meet the parts of us that live in our body, use our nervous system, are stuck in our tissues, but also are deep-seated, um, you know, distressing emotions and subconscious beliefs, all of that, when you can relate to yourself differently through parts language, that's where neuroplastic healing takes place. And it can only be done through our conscious awareness to bring it all together. So, to heal the body mind system, to bring transformation in our life that we're all yearning for, we need a process that not only includes the body, but also includes the deeper substructures of the brain and our subtle psychology, our subconscious mind. And we can only do this through our conscious awareness. And that's what brings about this neuroplastic change that we all need to transform our consciousness.
Yeah, I'm remembering a definition of the word remember itself, that we talk about remembering ourselves or coming back to ourselves. And one way of looking at this word remember is not just to recall or bring back to memory, but to put the pieces of something back together, to remember as opposed to dismember. To dismember means to take the pieces of something and separate them from each other. To
Mm.
remember something means to put back together what had been separated, but what belongs with each other. And therefore, to remember ourselves means to remember all the different essential elements of our being, as you mentioned, body, mind,
Mm,
and spirit. And we usually get really good at exiling one or two or of the others, right? And so men get really good at exiling our feelings, right? And we get really much in our head and our thoughts. Or some people can get really good at exiling their body and dissociating with their body. And just, I used to teach yoga, and I would say the number one mantra for our body that we have is to shut up, right?
mm,
Just to be quiet, and we do that oftentimes. We just, if there's a body's trying to tell us something, we just, how do I get rid of this symptom, right, and make it go away, and find a, whether it's through a medication, or whether it's just through some practice or something, to make this go, without really listening. Wow, what's my body trying to tell me? Or what is my strong reaction to my body that I'm feeling when I look in the mirror and I do or don't like what I see? And just
mm,
build, like, what's the relationship I have with my body, and do I listen to the wisdom and the messages of my body. I lived as a monk for 10 years. You know that. People who know me know that. And I think a big part of this practice for us today is to incorporate all of that into our journey, to be able to
mm,
recognize that there's an important element of these things that we often miss and overlook. And
mm,
I'm curious. I mean, we have something we wanted to read from Susan McConnell's Somatic IFS book that might give us some food for thought. And I'm also curious to hear more from you, just to share, because you were sharing a lot of really great stuff about awareness and coming back to our being, and just what that's looked like for you, because I think you've been on such a journey with that, coming home to your body and coming home and bringing that into your work with other people, and just sharing your personal journey and experience of, like, what that means for you.
mm. Well, I think my experience is universal. I think it's what we're all navigating or feeling the stuckness in life around. And that is that so much of us earnestly, sincerely want well-being. There's no one who wakes up in the morning and is like, how can I increase my suffering and feel worse about myself, have more strain in my relationships, hate my body more, yell at my kids more. It's the opposite, right? We all have the same shared universal goal towards well-being, towards peace of mind, towards contentedness, towards purpose and fulfillment, and feeling that alignment and flow and ease and joy of life. Again, not to bypass the struggles and difficulties of life, but be able to navigate those external challenges with grace, with presence, with not being strung out and dysregulated and triggered and tripped out over. And so, like many people, I started my journey with therapy, with inner work when I was 19. Right around the same time I started my spiritual journey, I kind of fell into studying Eastern philosophy, Eastern spirituality, beginning with Buddhism. My heart was so drawn to um, these Eastern concepts and understanding about the nature of reality, the nature of suffering, how we aren't these bodies, we aren't these minds, we aren't these egos, we're this consciousness that animates the body. And but interestingly enough, they kind of were two different tracks. Like I was working on all my inner ickiness and struggle and anxiety. I mean, I had an eating disorder. I had super high functioning levels of anxiety that would get me doing so much like the Energizer Bunny. And then I would hit a wall, become so stressed and depleted, and my system would shut down, withdraw, and I would feel hopeless and despair, give up, and then the cycle would repeat again. And that could happen all in a week, maybe a couple times a week, and I would just ping pong back and forth between this high stress, overwhelm, anxiety, to depletion and withdrawal and shame and despair. And And so I knew there was my mental health needed help. And so, what do you do when you hear that? You get yourself into therapy. And most of us, our entry point into the therapeutic world is through talk therapy, conventional CBT therapy, where you're just sitting and talking and really just rehashing your past, trying to make connections, connect the dots of your childhood, and rationally understand through analysis, through perspective, your story, your pain, and on some level, there's insight and there's value in actually facing your past and looking at it and developing coping healthy coping tools to reframe your perspective to find healthy ways to navigate day to day life. But like so many, again, it's so universal. Talk therapy only gets us so far because really what we're doing in talk therapy is we're engaging our prefrontal cortex, so our higher functioning, what we call the human brain, the what makes us human, the part of the brain that is responsible for yeah, our alert, wakeful, conscious thinking, planning, um, analyzing, reasoning, rationalizing. And that's just one part of our being, though. So that's why healing doesn't really stick or sustain on at that level when we're just talking, when we're just working things out, when we're just relying on perspective and insight and our intellect, essentially. Um, which is so interesting that that pervades the therapeutic world because so much of us are disconnected from our bodies and there is an overemphasis of intellectualism, and we get applauded in the world, in our career, in our, you know, uh, anywhere, for having, for being smart, for figuring things out, for problem shooting, for fixing, for getting things done. And that's essential. We love that. That's so essential to getting through life. But healing and or wounding really doesn't happen in our thinking brain. It happens in our body, in our nervous system, in our subconscious, and what's beneath the surface of our cognitive functioning. And so I eventually found my way to somatic work, to somatic experiencing, to IFS. And I had this incredible, I call her my fairy godmother, a therapist in my mid to late 20s who just had this really eclectic approach to bringing all of these body-based modalities and parts work together, and it was transformational. It was a true revelation. and and so that's why I'm here today, doing the work that I'm doing because of my own inner journey, and seeing the limitations in just devoting myself to a spiritual path, and how that in a way is spiritually bypassing when you don't have a way you're compassionately treating yourself and engaging with your own body mind system. Spirituality kind of jumps to feel compassion for the world and the suffering of the world and have compassion for everyone else, but there's very little of a focus of feeling that compassion towards the parts of ourselves, our own inner world. and and so when I really started to study and delve into deeply to IFS, what was so powerful is that it bridged the gap between psychological healing and spiritual work. And that's it, as it turns out, the magic ingredient to a journey of healing and awakening. So both a journey of our psychological healing and also our spiritual awakening. And that's at the essence of what the embodied self is. And I think at the heart of what spiritual path, any spiritual path is trying to do is to awaken, to unearth your true essence, your core nature, your loving conscious presence, your spiritual self, your spiritual essence, your soul, however you want to put it. And that, when we can do our inner work with that being the guiding light, which IFS, somatic IFS, is what it does. And then from that place, engage with our body mind system, our parts. Um, it's just like there's nothing more powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what you're sharing. Mother Teresa said something to the effect of, the greatest spiritual act you can do, or the greatest spiritual revolution you can create, is to go home and love your family.
Mm.
And I was thinking, as you're saying that, to extend that to love our inner family, like my inner
Mm.
family of parts, which can be so, you said, like, to be so compassionate to the world and love everybody and serve everybody. Yes, but for that to be sustainable and to even have impact, because what is it that the world really needs? The world needs ground. Like, what we need more than anything is just to know that we're not alone, that we're cared for, that we're loved, that we're not forgotten, right? We don't fear failing. We feel being seen as a failure and the rejection of a failure, right? We don't just want a partner. Like, nobody wants to just be married for the sake of being married, or have a partner for the sake of having a partner. We want intimacy and connection, and to know that we're not alone, and someone to share our life with, or whether that's with your kids or with your partner or with your dog, or now we have two dogs, right? And so whatever that may be, and so for us to go and quote unquote serve humanity or be compassionate to other people, means to be able to offer presence, to really
Mm.
be there for another person, requires me to be here with myself, and to bring that presence towards other people that I meet and interact with. And
Mm.
so, to go home and love your family, and to go home, and it sounds corny and weird, and I get a lot of pushback sometimes, even when I speak, like, to go home and love yourself, and to know what that really
Mm.
means, right? To know what that really
Yeah.
means, to know what
We're not
self
talking about self-love, self-care, like have a bubble bath, get your nails done. We're talking
yeah.
about actually tending to our inner world. Hmm.
Not that we're against bubble baths or getting our nails done,
Oh, that sounds lovely. Yeah.
right? But to actually really to do that, and maybe this is a good time to read this little section. We wanted
Well,
to.
can I share one more thing as you're
Yeah, of
speaking?
course.
Because this is at the heart of the work we do, you know. It's actually it makes me laugh to think about, you know, what we're doing is so simple yet so profound. Like, yes, we've been trained, we have certifications, there is technique and protocol and expertise and mastery in what we do, at growing and growing levels, right? But really, all that we're doing is something that you can't really be taught. You can't learn it. You have to experience it. And then it's your own inner integrity to cultivate more and more of the self energy, that presence. That's what we're doing beyond anything else when we're with our clients, and what we train and teach the people that want to do the same work as we do in our trainings, is that it all rests on this foundational pillar of embodied self energy, of presence. And you know, so much of the people that we work with, yeah, and everybody in the world, like, we're all yearning for you know, a fix, a solution. How do we get rid of, how do I not feel dysregulated, how do I get rid of this anxiety? um and again, like, if you just try to think your way into that regulation or solving or fix, you're just going to be running in loops. That's why so many people feel like therapy does feel like they plateau, and they're just going in circles, and they're still experiencing the same trauma responses or triggers or emotional dysregulation. It's because there's lacking this essential ingredient in the healing journey, is presence. And that's what we're providing our clients. And if we can simply just hold a container of that safety, love, and belonging for our clients, and give their system a co-regulating resource in us, but also inspiring and drawing out the self in our clients. And when that happens, that's when transformation can really take place. When our clients begin to relate to themselves differently from this conscious place of the embodied self, and they're kind of leaning on that and getting that from us, providing it to them, and it's like a template for them to how they can then resonate and relate to their own system. And that's at the heart of it. You know, what you were saying earlier, it's like at the core of it all, we just want, at the core of it all, we just want to feel that sense of safety, love, and belonging, safety and connection. You know, if we could define trauma as a loss of safety and connection, and eh, you know, the system is overwhelmed and distressed, can't process it, loses safety and connection, then trauma is restoring that sense of safety and connection. And through that restoration, processing, integrating, and healing can take place.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how, one of my favorite book titles in the world is also by Richard Schwartz, You Are the One You've Been Waiting For. And that idea of relating to yourself differently. I'm just thinking about it in my own journey and my own process, because you mentioned how we're always at different levels or degrees on our own journey. And even us as coaches and practitioners and teachers are constantly on our own journey and
Mm,
developing and working on ourselves. And when I look at my own journey and I think about how what it's looked like for me to learn how to tend to many of those inner parts, lonely ones, wounded ones, younger inner children, that throughout so much of their life have been waiting and wanting, even unconsciously, just for someone to take care of them. Because that's what we needed
mm,
as kids, right? That's what we
mm,
needed as kids. We needed someone to take care of us. And when we don't feel that in the way that we needed, then we end up kind of going through our life just expecting, waiting for somebody else to do that for us. And I just have to the right find the right person, or find the right job, or find the right place, or whatever it may be. And we we push up against the idea of having to do that for ourselves. And when we push up against the idea of having to do that from ourselves for ourselves, when we're not doing it from a place of self, when we're doing it from that wounded place, where there's just
mhm.
this wounded, parentified inner child that's trying to do the healing for us.
And that's when our thinking parts take over. Our parts become, that's why we get so disconnected from our body and mind, because our protector parts most times live in the prefrontal cortex. They live in our thinking brain. So they're trying to solve and fix. They mean well. They really want us to feel that safety and connection. They want healing. And that's the beautiful thing that you discover as you explore your inner world, is that how all parts are good. All parts have noble intentions, positive intentions, that they want the same thing that the core self wants, that we all want: well being, safety, connection, love, and belonging. And so when we overly rely on and identify as our intellect, as our high functioning managers of our life, and that's part of a lot of the journey for everyone, is to come to know intimately who are these self-like parts, these parts that are super intelligent, are very mature and responsible, and care deeply. You know, the perfectionist, the inner critics, the caretaker, the selfless martyr. You know, these parts of us that are working overtime 24/7 to try to lead the system, to ensure the safety of the system. And that is a powerful kind of milestone in everyone's parts work journey, is coming to intimately know and understand, know the voice, know the words and how they speak and their fears and their motives of those high functioning manager parts that are trying to do what really only the self can do. Only the self can bring that sense of safety and connection, bring that healing and harmony. And no matter how well intentioned our protector parts are, um, they too, they want to be relieved of the burden of responsibility that is way over their pay grade.
Mm.
And so real healing is this restoration of returning home to the body, to reconnect with our parts, and to do so from a place of self um, that can heal and has the clarity, the wisdom, the inner knowing of how to.
Yeah, yeah. And so that I think will lead into this beautiful section that I wanted to read here with from Susan McConnell about that very, very exact part about being embodied. And I just have to find it here because I had it bookmarked. I was going to read one section and then you were saying another thing and I decided to read something else. So, okay, we'll read this. You ready?
Hmm.
So this is Susan McConnell who developed this model of, she was an early internal family systems trainer and developer with Dick Schwartz, and she brought her experience doing body-based healing practices into IFS and developed this specific model and practice known as somatic IFS, somatic internal family systems. And she says that she was searching for resources that integrated mind and body, and she finally found a book now considered a classic entitled Body Mind, just one word. Not even a space between the words, she said. I also learned about the philosopher and educator Thomas Hanna, who was pioneering the field of somatics. He coined the term somatics from the ancient Greek word soma, meaning body. Much of my learning and experimenting was convincing me that it is possible to overturn the mechanistic view of the body that has prevailed in Western cultures since the Enlightenment, that we could shed the objectification of our body as the Latin corpus and embrace this soma, this more subjective view of our body. We could view our body from the inside out, honoring the body as a source of guidance and vessel for spirit or life force. And she ends
Mm.
that paragraph by saying, changing ourselves can change the culture.
Mm.
And what I love about that, and she goes on in a lot of different places, and we'll get into more of it and in different episodes and conversation, was just what does it mean to come back to ourselves? It doesn't mean to eject ourselves out of the body, but the body can become that gateway towards experiencing presence just by starting to notice what's going on right here, right now with my breath, in the feelings of, when we talk about motions and sensations, it's so often felt in our chest, in our gut, in our shoulders, in my neck, in my head, right? And
Hmm.
and I was hearing recently how we forget that before we could speak, before we could even formulate thoughts that made sense, our first home was our body. From the moment we came into this world, right? Our first home was our body. And that, you look at animals, we have two dogs, they're so embodied, they're so in touch with what's going on in their embodied presence. And it's really powerful. And when you even just slow down and spend time with animals or spend time with nature, like nature is so embodied with its elements that we can use the body as a powerful gateway towards that presence. And it's a revolution because we're so fast paced. We mechanize, automate all the bodily functions, that our meals, our sleep. We sacrifice all of these things for the sake of productivity because we got to go without slowing down and recognizing how important it is to tune in and notice what's going on in my body and how I can experience self in an embodied way. And that's sort of the as we've been mentioning over and over, the name of this podcast and the theme of the work that we're doing and what we want to share and what we're coming back to and what we're inviting people into is to bring all of these three elements together, as you've been saying, and our awareness of our body and the physical element of our being, the psyche of our inner part system, and our spiritual dimension. And so,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and what she speaks to in that quote that really, I think speaks to why there is such struggles with our mental health is because, yeah, we look at it just as the field of mental health, just
Mhm.
focusing on our mind, and why so many therapeutic approaches are just um, thinking and talking and analyzing and interpreting and reasoning and rationalizing. Because there is this divorce, this false separation of the mind from the body. And so, if you're really going to en engage with any on any if you're trying to work on your mental health, it has to include the body, because the body mind system is one system. And yes, it's still helpful to know the nuances and distinction of the two. There's value in that. It's not like we blow it completely out and just just like our body itself is made of parts. There's a heart, there's the lungs, there's our stomach, there's our skin, and each has its unique place and purpose and role in our body system. So just like our body is a system of parts, our body mind system has, the physical form, structure, fascia, tissues, anatomy, nervous system. And also, it has the psychology, the deeper structures of the brain. The nervous system kind of bridges the body with the mind in that it connects to subconscious or unconscious functioning, such as it automates, like, to use that word you were saying, it automatically, our hearts beat for us, our stomach digests for us without us even needing to think. We don't even need to think consciously to breathe. But there's even deeper to if in that, as you discover, there's these parts of us, these subconscious parts of us um, that make up our psychology. And what's so powerful about somatic parts work is that when we work with parts, when we engage with parts, when we go inside and create enough inner space to be with our parts, to get to know them, to learn from them, we see that they're intimately connected. We're simultaneously doing body work. We're simultaneously working with the somatic experience of parts, because parts live within our body, in our tissues, in our nervous system. They use our body to express symptoms or to activate nervous system survival states. And so when IFS parts work is so powerful because you can just relate to yourself and your body mind system as parts, and it's taking care of both the body and the mind and integrating them. And that is why it's so holistic and comprehensive, and healing does feel full and complete and transformational when you do experience the full unburdening of a part, the full um, liberation of these parts that are stuck holding their burdens of either distressing emotions or extreme protective strategies or roles. You're simultaneously kind of doing both working at the level of the body and the mind and the subconscious mind. Um, so I just love that quote because, again, it speaks to the essence of this work that we do, which is so holistic. And it's not divorcing. We're not just talking. Maybe a misconception of parts work to people just peeking in is it sounds like, oh, I'm just dialoguing with, I'm just all in my head, just dialoguing. And this is a different type of dialogue and conversation, and sometimes a lot of words can be shared, but the stories and the hidden histories that get unearthed when we dialogue with our parts in this way, from a place of self rather than just a thinking part trying to interpret and make meaning and think and solve, but really tapping into speaking with and being with. And sometimes parts don't have words. Sometimes it's you're translating it almost like you're watching a foreign film and reading the subtitles, and the emotional truth and the words and are self-evident and can be expressed in words, in language, but sometimes the body just speaks purely in its own somatic language, through sensation, through energy, through impulse, through breath patterns, through postures, maybe collapsed or tense, restricted muscles, or a fluttering stomach or a racing heart. Um, and so sometimes it's purely a somatic dialogue, that is taking place, but in in moving from our thinking mind and dropping into our seat of awareness, and so instead of just talking all about our experiences, talking all about our challenges or circumstances, we're actually being with the full embodied experience of our system that is navigating this distress due to a loss of safety and connection. And through the presence of self, we can restore that loss of safety and connection and co-regulate with our body mind system, offer that felt sense of safety and connection through even simply just curiosity and an openness to feel a little compassion or care or understanding for what our body mind system is burdened with and dealing with. And that just opens up a whole new dimension of healing and makes it possible to go on this pathway of actually processing our unconscious wounds, our trauma, and integrating it, and feeling that somatic release, but also psychological release of, so it's both releasing the constricted energy that might be lodged in our tissues and our fascia, feeling our nervous system be entrained back to regulation, and be able to fluidly, return to safety and connection. Um, th- it's just this powerful kind of holistic embodied experience.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I love how it can be scary sometimes to slow down if it feels like too much going
Mhm.
on inside. And because you said that we're often holding so much, and that's a reality, that we are often holding so much more than we're even consciously aware of. I mean, that's the definition of stress or anxiety or overwhelm, when
Mm.
the experiences of my life exceed my capacity or perceived capacity to hold it.
Mhm.
And instead of learning or being taught or encouraged to slow down and notice that and allow our nervous system to regulate, we just push forward because we think we're supposed to, or because think that's how we're going to become worthy, or how we're going to be fit in or find our place in the world, or just because we feel we can't because of survival mode. Right? There's just too many
Mm.
responsibilities. There's too many people that I'm taking care of. There's too many things that I have to do. Otherwise, everything's going to fall apart. And healing is the gradual allowing of myself to slow down enough so that I can start to just notice how much I've been carrying. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of people that come into my office, my Zoom room, and it's almost like we don't always know what we want to talk about. What do you want to talk about today? It's like, I don't really know. It's just, I know that there's just too much going on. I know there's something, like my system is kind of waving this white flag of something needs to change. Something needs to
Mm.
different. pace or a different way of operating or functioning. And just acknowledging that is a lot. That, wow, I've been holding and carrying a lot. And we sometimes don't recognize that because we think, I just thought this was normal.
Mm.
We don't recognize how out of how out how dysfunctional something can be until we recognize, until it's pointed out to us, we have some sense of normalcy, right? Like, oh, it's not normal to feel anxious all the time, right? To feel tired all the time, right? To be
Mm.
insecure and doubtful of myself all the time. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's just how it always was. And so I'm appreciating just the invitation to know that things could be different, right? The
Yeah.
invitation to know that things could be different and it's possible. It's just not going to happen with all of the normal tools I've been using to navigate life thus far. And it's going to require me to gradually create enough safety and trust internally and with whoever else it may be externally that's needed to support at the time, to be able to let those parts of me relax so that a new sense of self can come in. Because we say things like, I don't trust myself, or I don't believe in myself, or I feel overwhelmed by it all. It's like, oh, I mean, I think, oh, you don't know yourself. And I feel that all the time too, right? I'm an Enneagram type 6. I'm have all of the all the different types of my personality and my upbringing, that it's easy for me to doubt myself a lot. So I don't say that it's like, it's easy necessarily, for those parts to soften back, but there is
But
a sense.
even just that, like knowing part of this work that's so powerful is that conscious awareness that you do have a part that gets overwhelmed with who am I and how can I hold all this and
Yeah,
this feels like too much, and you knowing for yourself that's a beautiful, brilliant, intelligently designed part of you communicating like I feel overwhelmed and am overboard and I need attention, I need care, and so some people have those symptoms, that waving of the white flag coming through as autoimmune issues. They have mysterious, uh, you know, uh, skin rashes or digestive issues or hair loss or physical pain or fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome. Like all of these are just symptoms, messengers from our body mind system, um, telling us we need attention. Please look at me. I need self. I need self leadership. I need this conscious, loving presence to be the adult in the room. And so also just that's part of the work, even recognizing when these kind of habitual thoughts come up around identity and feeling lost and confused. Like that right there is just an indication there's a really overburdened protector part that's trying to hold it all together.
yeah, yeah. I hear you on that one for sure. And we have a lot, and we're really here to offer hope. And that's why I'm excited. That's why I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad to be sharing this here with others, and I'm glad to be sharing it with myself. Is that to share with those parts of us that feel overwhelmed, or that need that there's hope, right? That it's there in all of us. It's there in all of
Mhm.
us. And this was the big breakthrough also for Dick Schwartz in the psychotherapeutic field, that it's not that only if you had a certain upbringing or only if you had a certain amount of love in your home are you able to access that level of self inside of you. It's there. It's innate. That's the universal spiritual principle. That's the meaning of universal compassion, that brings more patience and understanding to everyone we meet, even the people we don't like, even the people that hurt us or hurting other people. Like, there's something unseen inside of them that is pure and beautiful, and holds all of those qualities of self. It's just deeply covered over or buried or hijacked by a very intense protective system that's guarding their own pain. And we bring that realization into our relationships when we're in conflict with friends or family or partners or politics or whatever it may be, and recognizing like, oh, wow, there's just a lot of people guarding against pain that are feeling
Mm.
overwhelmed. And when we get overwhelmed, we lose perspective and we make very limited choices with short term gains, but long term consequences. And we've just lost sight of that sense of self in us. And that's what's happening
Mm.
when people are hurting other people, when people are making decisions that create conflict and division and seem to just be narcissistic or egotistical, or they're just a jerk or
Toxic.
toxic or whatever it may be. It's like, they're not toxic. No, they've just developed very limited perspective, short-term strategies for dealing with the overwhelming immense pain that they've been carrying for so long.
Yeah.
That's what's going on underneath. And as long as I'm doing the same thing, I'm just going to get into an argument and a fight. And the best thing I can do is take that U-turn and look at, where am I doing this to myself and the people around me, that I can connect more deeply internally so that I can be a vessel of perspective and bring that out, and ultimately recognize, and this is super important for anybody as a coach or a healer or a therapist or a leader of, whether it's a leader of nations or a leader of families or a leader of companies or whoever it may be, is the world is not a place for me to fix. People are not projects for me to fix. I can only bring my embodied sense of self as much as I'm able to support that person's journey home. And I have to surrender a certain level of control that they're on a journey that I can't ultimately take on as a project. I can support, but I can't do for them. And to recognize that everyone's on their own journey, to trust that it's happening in their own timeline, right? They say in 12 Super, everyone has a higher power and it's not me. Thank goodness. Right. And so that just goes back into a trust of, like, one therapist told me one time in their own experience of just being overwhelmed by so much of what's going on in the world. It's like, you feel that too? And I was like, she's like, yeah, I'm a therapist. Of course, I deal with it every day. Right. And she said, I was just told at one point, just stay in my corner and weave. She was giving like analogy like
Mm.
a spider doing the work. Just stay in your corner, not stay in your corner of like, stay in your lane and get out of here, but like, just do what you do well, show up in the world every day as much as you can, and just trust the process and trust a higher spirit. And that's one of the greatest things that I ever learned and heard in my own training as a coach was, spirit is your co-coach in every session. Right.
Mm.
And what if I brought that mentality into every moment aspect of my life, right? And
Mm.
so, that's a bigger conversation about, our own self to part relationship, and then our own self to big self relationship, and how we're living in that way. But overall, I'm really excited and grateful to have these conversations and to be sharing more of this with you. All of these topics we can dive into more, and we will. And we want to hear from you out there. If you're excited about having this conversation with us in an ongoing way, to ask us questions, to be in touch, to share your thoughts, reflections, share something you heard with somebody else. If it struck you in a particular way and resonates and feel like it would resonate with somebody else, we'd like to talk about things that are relevant for you and your ongoing development journey of healing and awakening and transformation. So please write to us and share questions, share thoughts, reflections. We want to stay in touch and continue these conversations. And I'm grateful to be doing this with you, Rasika, and sharing everything that you're sharing and being here. So thank you for finally agreeing to do this.
Oh, I'm so grateful to you. And yeah, I'm really excited for all that's to come and unfold in these conversations. And can't wait to connect with those who find value or benefit in these conversations. Please send us your questions, your topics that you want us to explore, to talk about. And we look forward. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, and if you want to be in touch, all this information's there in our bio and description, but also you can check us out at consciousearthinstitute.com, or find us online at Healing with Dayal or at Conscious Earth on Instagram, and just be in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Have a great one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.